everyone and welcome back to another video. I hope you're all excited because the garden update is coming June 11th and that's what we're going to be looking at today. So we're all going to need to prepare because there is a lot coming, and I'm going to try and go over as much of what we do know as possible because this update did release in Korea back in December, and over the course of a few months they released a few more updates for the garden. Now I'm going to go over all of these in detail in a moment, but before we do, we can quickly talk about the growth event that they've put in the game to help everyone actually try and gear up a little bit. I don't know how helpful it is, but the purpose of it is you go on over to Mirage Isle, you're going to go to the machine, you'll spend 5 gold, I believe, to pick up a quest, and then you just need to spend 1,500 labor throughout your day, and then you'll get 1 token. This is lasting for a little while, but you can only get 18 of this quest per account, so be careful with that. I think it's per account at least, and this will only give you the top tier reward. Like, you can get a lower tier reward, but it doesn't really matter that much. Like, as long you should just try and aim to get as many as possible. So if you're gonna miss a few days, that's just how it is. But the rewards are like the synthesis stuff, and it I mean, it's not that much, honestly. I think you get like 150 radiant ones, and then you could also get a box, but the boxes are like a chance that you might get one of several items, and so it's not the best. So I'd recommend just going for the synthesis materials and going from there. Also, on another note, they've put in a Shiba Inu as a little compensation for the server issues lately. So if you go into the marketplace, I believe it's under credit store, and then event, there's a free Shiba Inu that you can redeem once per account, so make sure to redeem that as well. Now then, let's actually get into the fun part of the garden update. So a lot of this is going to be translated over from Korean text, and it's not the best because I don't really know anyone from Korea who can help me with this. I don't really have a Korean friend, or many friends in general. But we're going to take a good look at it. Now, first of all, before we go right into the garden, some of the update stuff that's going to be coming is some longer weighted stuff, such as the Hiram dailies now becoming weeklies. This is only for, well, with the exception being the East Hiram Mountains. So everything in the East Hiram Mountains is still going to be a daily. But outside of that, West Hiram, Reedwind, Sungal, all that stuff is still going to be, that's going to be weekly. So thank God for that. That's a lot less to do because the developers did acknowledge that it has become a bit of a chore for a lot of people, and I think we've been wanting this for a while, so that should be coming with this update. And also, to go alongside this, there's been a few changes to the castle as well. So with the castle now, the mob requirements is now went from 100 to 50 on the purification areas, so you only need to kill 50 purified mobs instead of 100, which is going to hopefully cut down those daily raids as well, by those daily reset raids by quite a bit. So, you know, it's a lot nicer than it used to be. Also, the bathing pool in the castles now has a shield that will protect people from being murdered while they're AFKing for labor, which was a bit of an issue. But I don't know whether this is something we need to activate. It's probably going to have to be something the heroes have to activate in the castle to make sure that it works and functions properly. So we'll see how that works when it actually is implemented. I will go over all of the patch notes when they do officially come out, but we'll just speculate from what we have from here. Now then, let's get into the garden, because this is what we're all here for. Now the garden, you can enter from the north of East Hiram. It's just north of the Hall of Warriors, I believe. A lot of the story quests will lead you up to then. If you haven't completed your story quests already, they're now going to continue into the garden. So the garden is going to be this instanced area. I think it's going to be several zones, and it's going to be an instanced area with, or at least I think I don't know how many zones it's going to be, honestly, but for looking from the footage, it seems like there's a lot of different areas within the garden, so we can expect probably a few zones in here, and they are toting this to be an expansion of sorts. So it's very exciting because it's going to make a lot of changes. Now the storyline is going to continue into the garden, and as I was saying, the garden is this sort of cross-server instanced area that is instanced off from the rest of the world, and the servers that are connected to this are going to change over time. Now, I think this might have something to do with server activity, how powerful each servers are. We're not 100% on the details here, but I think it's going to be really interesting because it's going to swap out the players that you're coming across each time, and, you know, some of the communities, the server communities, are going to start to cross over, which will be a fun little thing. Now, going a bit more into the story, they mentioned something along the lines of there being 2 separate scenario modes. I'm not sure if this is like a choice you can make that branches the storyline in some way. Again, I'm not super invested in the lore. I'm not really a lore guy when it comes to Archeage. I am the guy that just skips all the quest dialogue, so I'm not 100% on who any other characters are. I've got a vague idea of the gods and stuff. But yeah, they say the scenario content will feel a bit more like dungeon content, and it's going to be seamless. So I imagine this is just within the garden. It isn't instanced off from the rest of the garden content, but it's also apparently dungeon-like content. This could be, you know, poor translation, but what we do know is the garden mobs are going to be a lot tougher than mobs outside the garden. So I think people will be struggling in Mythic and Eternal Gear. Well, I mean, if you're trying to solo at least, may depend on your class. We're going to see when we go in. We do know it's going to be a lot tougher though, so you are going to need to progress a lot, and I am working hard to try and catch up, because I was sitting around AK for a while trying to mess around with Hereafter Rebellion and come up with a guide that will work specifically for people at AK. But you know, I'm just sort of rushing ahead now to try and catch up. Anyway, in the garden, Anthalon will return as Corrupted Anthalon now, and he's going to be another world boss, or he's going to be some sort of boss within the garden at least. And this raid is apparently going to be a lot more. They've said they think it's going to be a lot more difficult because they've changed out the mobs that you'll face with each encounter. So there's a bit of RNG as to which encounter you'll get with Anthalon, from what I'm understanding. We'll see when we actually get around to doing it, but it's going to be interesting because, hey, more content. And speaking of world bosses, in the Korean version of this update, they did change timers for world bosses. And I know timers is a big issue for a lot of people right now, so we may be seeing some timer changes as well. I mean, I can't say for certain we're going to see these timers change, but I think we can bet that these timers are going to change at some point, and the garden update probably would be a really good time to do it, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, also in the garden, there is this new type of daily quest called the Scouting Mission. Now, the Scouting Mission has several ranks, from going from like 12 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. I don't know if you can lose a rank completely, but how this Scouting Mission will work is you'll start off at rank 6, from what I'm understanding. And the actions you do within the garden, such as killing mobs, killing other players, even gathering, will increase the rank over time. And also surviving. It mentions surviving just increases your rank in non-peace zones. But you also lose ranks if you die. So I don't know how this is going to work. It's going to be pretty tough to get that on rank 12, I'd think, but I'm not 100% sure how many PvP zones are going to be in there, how many peace zones and places you can sort of relax in there are. So with all the endgame players being in there, and obviously everyone's going to be very PvP hungry if they want to get their rank up, we'll see how this goes. But the reward that you get at the end of the day from the daily will differ depending on the rank that you have. So rank 12 will give you the best rewards, and then so on. But you do start at rank 6, so I'm curious, for players that maybe aren't as geared, what the motivation is to, or how easy it would be to actually get up to rank 12 before the end of the day. We'll have to see how this does play out, and whether it'll have to be balanced in some way. Who knows? We're not 100% sure, and we don't know what the rewards are, unfortunately. But it's a cool new way of doing a daily, and I'm definitely intrigued to see how it goes. Now, also another big system in the garden. I'm not sure if this will be in the patch, but we'll see. I mean, it seems to be in there from what we've seen from the trailer. There's a lot of these people sitting in thrones or chairs around the garden, and this is a whole new system that they've put in, which is some sort of god system. It is called the Garden of the Gods after all, and it seems like players can sit in the thrones, or they can claim a power from the thrones. Like it seems like maybe one player for 24 hours, and this gives them these massive godlike abilities. Like there's a 200-meter looking frost AoE, which I think is going to have a really high cooldown. There's definitely or it's limited time use, like maybe 3 times a day. There was some rough mention of something along those lines, and then there are 4 of these abilities, so whether it depends on the throne that you take or the throne you're connected to, because I don't know if you become a god or I think it says you borrow the power of the gods, so I'm not sure. But it also mentions 2 persistent abilities, which I would assume means passives. So we'll see how this plays out, and I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be tied to the hero system. It wouldn't make a ton of sense to be tied to the hero system, because this is a cross-server thing as well. And whether we can use these powers outside the garden, who knows. But it looks really cool. And I'm not going to lie, if Amigo Games wants to hit me up and give me some god powers, you know, please do. Because I'd like to see how they work. Alright, now I'm taking a little detour outside the garden. Over in Hiranya, it seems, according to the post, some dwarfs have moved in on the eastern continent somewhere, and they've built like a new path. So there's like some new paths for trade runs to get around easier in Hiranya, so it'll make life a little easier for east players. I don't really know myself, because I've always been playing in the west, though I'm thinking of maybe making an east character just so I can kind of do some videos from their perspective as well, and try and, you know, give you guys both sides, because I feel like I'm only doing west stuff, and I feel like maybe that would help, but I also don't want to betray my west boys. But hey, we'll see where that goes. Alright, and also in this patch we're also getting a brand new tier of gear. So they call it the sublime gear in the Korean version. I don't know if we'll have the same name, I assume not, but this version of gear is very interesting. It's not gonna take your grades up or anything. I think the grade's staying where it is, so Eternal is the end grade still, but it'll increase your stats slightly. And it's got this whole new system called the specialization system. This is really interesting. There's some stuff in here that I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure how well it's translated, but it mentions being able to change the properties of some of the gear. So, for example, it gives the example that you could have a club heal a specific armor type better than another one. So you could have leather heal more, and this is for the target, sorry. So you would heal someone in leather a lot better than you would heal someone in plate, vice versa, and stuff like that. There's different. So I assume for damage it would work the same way. So you do more damage to someone in plate and maybe less to people in cloth. So it does seem to balance itself out in a way. This also applies to armor as well. So again, not entirely sure how it's going to work, but it's going to be really interesting. And they also mention being able to change the properties like the cut, the piercing damage, the cutting damage, all that stuff. So I don't know if that means I could take my take like a club and turn it into a piercing weapon. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. It will certainly be interesting. Also on top of this, all the raid gear, the / world boss gear is getting another tier as well. So what that'll entail, I assume it is going to also have the specializations that the new Hiram gear is going to have as well. So that'll be really interesting to see. And then on top of this, we have new ancestral abilities coming in, as well as 2 new skill points are going to be added to the pool. And I believe the passives that are under 5 points are now going to require 6 to try and balance this out. But this is going to be pretty cool. It means we can pick 2 new abilities on top of the stuff we've already got. So this is probably going to switch up the meta a little bit. We'll see stuff swap around. And I know they've balanced out and adjusted some skills based on this. We'll see where the meta does shift when we actually get to this patch. I'm going to definitely have a lot of fun playing around with my build a little bit. Maybe adding a couple. I don't know what I'd add. I'm trying to think, but I could certainly always use more skill points. Also, there's some other stuff that's mentioned in here that I'm not entirely sure is gonna be in the initial garden update. I feel like some of this they might save for later on, because there's a new dungeon they mentioned called Ipyna's Golden Sanctuary, which looks really cool. The Golden Sanctuary looks really, really fun. Whether this will drop with the garden update, I'm not sure, or if this is something they'll save for a little later down the line, so players can get a taste of the garden and then they get something else. So they'll sort of like drip feed it out. I'm not sure, but it does look really cool. I'm just not entirely sure it's going to drop with this patch. There's also like, there's a few images of like these 2 bosses that kind of remind me of one of the bosses from like Devil May Cry 3. That's the vibe I was getting from it. But yeah, there's also mention of a house fairy that will help with production, and this is something that sits in the sign of the house. And I'm not, it looks like a corgi that just sits in the sign of the house and apparently helps you with production in some way. So that's interesting as well. I don't know if that's going to be in there. There's also mention of a new mana upgrade and mana coins, as well as a smuggler system. What a lot of this means, I'm not entirely sure. This is stuff that, again, wasn't really well translated. But really interesting as well is a Season 2 of Mistsong Banquet. Now, I think Mistsong Banquet broke at some point, or they made some changes to it that made it a little weird. I've not really done Mistsong Banquet in a while. That's kind of just one of the things that on my list of things to do a day that I kind of just, you know, forget to do because I don't have the time. But yeah, that'll be really interesting. They've lowered the amount of players down to 3, so there's now only 1 person per lane, and they have to manage and build as well as grab all the feathers and fight the mobs on the lane. So how this will go, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. I'll make sure to heavily cover that if it actually comes out with the garden update. There's going to be a lot to cover, and I will be covering all of it when the garden update does drop. Mistsong Banquet is going to take a little time to figure out as well if that does drop, but we'll see. Anyway, that is most of what I've got to say about the garden update. There's like a few tiny details that I've probably skipped over. I haven't gone as in-depth in the skills and skill points, because I'm probably going to do that when the patch notes actually drop, because then I can tell you exactly the numbers and stuff that's changed, and we can kind of go over it and see what's been buffed and debuffed, and how interesting things are going to get. So expect that when the patch does drop on the 11th of June. It is going to be really exciting. It is Archeage, it's Unchained's first big expansion. I mean, they've had big updates in the past, but if it really is an expansion and they're combining all the updates the career have had, then there's going to be a lot to play through, which is going to be a lot of fun. So I'll be covering that when the time comes. In the meantime, make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitch. I do Twitch stuff. I'm also doing a podcast, which I may upload to this channel as well. I think I'm going to put that up weekly, and that'll just be something on top, because it's not going to affect the Archeage content in any way, but that is something I'm doing, so bear in mind. But yeah, thank you for watching, everyone. Hopefully this gets you as excited for the garden update as I am, and if it doesn't, I don't know what. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.